grab another napkin.
Thank you so much. Actually, I'll take this chair out. She's going to stay on her chair.
That makes perfect sense. All right. So
I'll find out what makes it destroyed. I don't want it, to be in bad shape when I'm out there on campaign. No, so I am.
So that's where it is.
I ate so much junk food this weekend.
Yeah, several days. Thanksgiving and then trust me. Oh, so it wasn't a crazy night?
Yeah, definitely let you know. It's so pretty. It's going to be fun.
It's very warm.
Not for a little bit. No, we went to their place for a little bit. They live in like Westminster.
Westminster?
They want to go there. And I was like, okay, I got there. I'm like, what the hell did I just do? And they had like a guest room.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm
Sandwiches.
Okay, was it me or did you buy the they're up to like $21 a piece now?
Yeah, I got in there.
I recognize you.
We had I think that snap was in the night or something.
Steven, I'm on the public.
About 2026, we're going to get to something international or something. I don't know what exactly it is, but I'm just getting frustrated. So we got.
So what time did you leave for shift?
I'm going to be mapping changes. It's going to be canceled. I was ready to go at 10:30. It's like 11 minutes later. That's the city's typically it's over. That's why I ran into you guys are sort of talking and having
I mean, were there any bumps in the road? Were there any drama or anything?
But yeah, that alright. Well, the
Oh yeah, they didn't have to check the. I think it was Art that was there. I was like, I'm sorry, who are you? And I was like, Anthony. And I was like, can you sign up?
I don't know if that's I go down the road.
yeah. Right. No worries. We can always shuffle around if you need to. Right here. He wants to do
I might go to the next one.
I think Riley is very told me the truth. So I asked you. I'm curious to see what's going to maybe things will be easier.
Put them on a committee. Something if they really want to be involved. This way they don't feel like they're left out. They'll structure things a little bit. We're going to have committees. And the committees aren't part of the Penny and Penny. Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, finish this last I just had 12. Oh, well, why not just do this?
Hi, how are you?
I'm like, well, I had a shop for help talking to you. I'm like, chill out and take notes. He's like, I think you need to drink. You need to help him out. Yeah, I'm just going to live with it. And I was just like,
Sorry?
No problem.
I love that was funny.
Oh, did you try to do that?
You're back from Florida.
Yeah.
Did you take them fishing?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. We had
Wonderful family time.
Oh, how lovely. That's really
It's the
great.
first time for grandson just got their license.
Your driving license?
So they drove over to our hotel to have breakfast. It was kind of special.
You did, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool.
Missed a good party?
Huh?
Missed a good party?
It was a nice party. It was really nice. It looked like a good turnout. To me, the food was good. There was a little wine involved.
What'd you make?
I made caramel
I
corn.
thought he went a little long.
But it seemed to be quite a hit because after
But it wasn't
everybody had
like
eaten the food, having something sweet wasn't
I
bad.
saw it absolutely.
And I didn't know it.
I thought it was a little long, but
Not to the
Some
point where
food
I don't know how
after,
to make caramel.
after 20 minutes or so, some food was really awful.
He's not a bent.
You know? So, like I love deviled eggs, but after 30 minutes on a buffet, deviled eggs just dried up and icky looking. They still taste good, but they look awful. So anyway, I thought caramel corn was good. And it's funny. Hi, how are you? No, that's not him. Oh, is he? Oh, you told me that, yeah. Well, we have a good showing from our building.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. Come early.
Pam.
Yeah, it was great. I went to the holiday.
I wrote that.
I know Mark comes in over
Every time I want to go for that.
New Orleans. Station was dressed up for the station was
She was like the actress you called it in.
yeah.
Doing
It's amazing to see you. I just spotted you. Thanks.
We don't have to add to the bar association.
It was fun to watch. Part of that stuff.
I didn't see any of the shots.
He had something going on. Like it was legit. Sean and Amber, they hit me up, but they weren't giving me up. They had something else. Very proud of popularity guys.
Yeah, we did.
He's on the board of pinning commentator.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
That's what I want, right?
Just like right in person. I've seen him a lot.
Our coaching is well represented. Yeah. Really hard. I'm afraid that I'll last until 6 p.m.
That's like, yeah. One thing to get buzzed, another thing to get sloppy.
There's one thing about
Worked out okay. I totally forgot the show. I've never seen it for like once a year. Oh, did you? You like it? Yeah. And it's been more about, I didn't bring it tonight. I mean, it was yeah. My hands are still
the board is
Hear how they feel.
you're like, you know, great.
And I do think you're taking it to a new level.
We're staying in town, but we'll have a
2026 could be a breakout. Real breakout.
I don't disagree.
no. Especially when we have No, the littlest one in the family is
Last night we had it was 15 a month.
in order we get grandson,
Hey, good to see you in person. Yeah, absolutely. This is Olive. Yep. Olive and Lucy. We gotta be
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So if you don't like our
Well, introduce yourself to this person.
Five or seven veterans have like.
They told them everybody would be
I don't know.
It goes till 9, not
What's that? Yeah. It wasn't like.
Okay, hello, everyone.
Nope.
No,
Hello.
turn it on. Is the switch on?
Being louder.
So you can't hear me? Now you can hear me? Hello? Sorry.
You just have to.
Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome. On behalf of the Upper Downtown Neighborhood Association, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. We also want to thank Britt Deal and Downtown Denver Partnership, she's out there somewhere, and for hosting us. My name is Lisa Pope. I'm the president of the Upper Downtown Neighborhood Association. Gil Vondersek is the vice president, and he and I will be guiding the discussion tonight. So tonight's town hall is about one of the most pressing issues facing our city, how we support those experiencing homelessness, particularly those struggling with mental health issues and drug addiction, while also ensuring downtown Denver remains safe, thriving, and welcoming for residents, workers, and visitors. We're fortunate to have a distinguished panel with us tonight, and I see that Senator Ball was able to just hop in here right at the last second, so that's perfect. So we have Senator Matthew Ball, Deputy DA Matthew James, our mayoral D10 rep Sterling Sims, Chris Richardson, the Denver Police, he's with the Denver Police Department, Director, Crisis Center Bureau, and works with Roads to Recovery, and CM Council Member Sarah Parody. So let's welcome them this evening. And we also have with us right at the moment Ryan Ertman. He's right here in the first row. He's a guest. He is the Director of Safety and Security for Downtown Denver Partnership. And in a few minutes, Leora James will be entering, and I'll introduce her when she walks in. She's held up at the Capitol, you said, David? Yeah, Capitol. Okay, so, sorry, hold on one second. Okay, so let's take a minute. So let's take a minute, please, to let everyone introduce themselves. And you can kind of also bring your perspective and what you can bring to the conversation tonight about Roads to Recovery and helping those in need. So start with Senator Ball.
Hello, hello.
Yes, perfect.
Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody here. My name is State Senator Matt Ball, and I represent District 31 in the Senate, which is about half of downtown. My boundary ends at Lawrence Street. It's wonderful to be here. A little bit about me. I'm a fifth-generation Coloradan. I'm a veteran. I'm an attorney. And I also used to work at the city with all of these wonderful people. So I was part of the team that started the Rose to Recovery program and have worked really closely on this issue and came to the state Senate in part because I think that we do need a state solution to our mental health crisis. So I am very excited to be here and talk about this topic, which I'm really passionate about. So thank you for having me.
Sure.
My name is Matthew James. I work as a deputy DA in the Denver DA's office. I'm the office liaison to the Downtown Safety Project down here. And I got involved with this because I live right near downtown and I wanted to be as involved as I can in helping to build safety in the neighborhood and really helping to work to find solutions that our office can help with and help to really make this area safe, make people happy to be here, and make people happy to come down and do business here.
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Sterling Sims. I serve as the Senior Outreach Manager for Mayor Johnson's office for Council District 10. I also serve as Operations Coordinator for All in Mile High, which is our homelessness resolution program. In that role, my job was really to interact directly with folks experiencing homelessness on a day-to-day basis, getting to know their experience, both navigating our shelter system and our case management network across the city, and really helping reconcile their experience with the policy that we were crafting here at the city. So that's really the perspective that I came from on the homelessness crisis, but great to be with all of you.
Afternoon, Chris Richardson, Director of Crisis Services with the Denver Police Department. I am a licensed clinical social worker, so I'm 100% a mole that snuck into the Denver Police Department. So really trying to see how do we put a lens of the behavioral health onto our criminal justice system and how we're approaching individuals that may pop onto the criminal justice radar, but also have that nexus of behavioral health. I'm a Denver native, super homer, so I'm probably going to tap into my roots as just how I feel about our community and the problem solving that we tend to take as a community. And I had about 17, 18 years with the Mental Health Center of Denver, working specifically with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness and co-occurring. So it's my passion population.
I'm Sarah Parody. I do represent you all, even though I'm not for science. I'm one of your 2 city council members at large. So I represent the whole city. I've been doing that for just 2.5 years now, first term council member. And I ran, my background is that I'm an attorney, like Senator Ball, but and obviously Deputy DA, but I have represented low-income and vulnerable populations in a lot of different kind of subject areas for, it was, 15 plus years in practice, starting at Legal Aid at Colorado Legal Services. I was doing foreclosure prevention, and then I became an attorney who represented people in sort of workplace claims and then also civil rights claims, but not so much the subject matter, it's just the fact that I had I guess a view into what a whole lot of different people were experiencing if they didn't have a lot of sort of financial cushion. And it just changed a lot. When I was a young legal aid attorney, I was representing the most vulnerable people in the city, but a whole lot of them were housed. And then I noticed at a certain point that my workplace clients, if they lost a job, I was experiencing this new thing, which is that suddenly they would confess to me that they were living in their car, and that's why they couldn't find like the paperwork I needed. And that was a shift, and that happened when housing prices went up. So a lot of reasons why I ran for office, but I will just say that it is the best job on earth. I love it so much. It's such a privilege, and I'm so appreciative of you all for letting me do it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So the key challenges that we'll be discussing tonight include shelters, treatment gaps, restrictive laws, funding pressures, and investment in safety and services. And at a few points during the evening, you'll be able to interact with us and our panelists with a Mentimeter question. We have a few of those for you, so get your phones ready for that. So let's just start with an introduction of roads to recovery. Chris, I was going to see if you could kind of introduce, I'm not sure who here really knows about Roads to Recovery, what it does, who it serves. So if you could give us a quick introduction, that would be great.
Sure. So Roads to Recovery is a mayoral initiative that kicked off about 2023 with Senator Ball, but he was not a senator at the time, where we were starting to talk really about how we have a lot of great programming in the city. We have a lot of individuals that are trying to engage this population, both behavioral health, homelessness, and they do it well, but sometimes with a one hand tied behind their back. And so how do we actually bring all these systems together and actually collaborate and lean on each other in a more efficient way that actually says, my service that I do here complements your service here. And by doing that, we actually have a whole village that is then surrounded by, around someone that needs that additional support. We believed at the time and continue to that individuals that are in the community continually tell us what it is they need or what it is that would be beneficial to see steps in their progression, steps in their recovery, steps in their life goals. We just don't have the ability to be on demand with getting them that access. So sometimes it is, I need help getting employment. I need help with housing. I need help with getting access to mental health care, to substance use. I want to get sober finally. And then the steps to get that are historically very difficult to navigate. Even for people that are paid to do this, it's let me get you on a wait list. And then all of a sudden that person saying, I'm ready to be vulnerable and want change now, can't access it. Then they feel defeated and they say, screw it, I'm just going to go use and keep using it in the community. And so what we really did was say, let's get all our resources pooled in one area. On demand is our goal. Referral is a bad word that we don't use anymore, and really engage the population that we know really is our most vulnerable, our most in need, and the ones that feel the most isolated in our community, and then wrap them around that. And having the different teams that can really use their personalities and charisma and engagement with individuals to build relationships up so that when that person bites on anything that says, I'm willing to make a step, that we can deliver it and then show that progression through time. It is a primarily homeless contact points at this point. It is touch points with the criminal justice because we do want to keep these individuals out of the jail system and on their roads to recovery. But it is all hands on deck effort from police department, from safety, from Department of Public Health and Environment, don't tell them I forgot them, post, but really like aligning all the stars with all of our best programming in the city and really supporting this population and this improvement. Yes.
I'm just going to add something and credit then non-Senator Ball, that's what I'm going to call you, with this piece of the work, although obviously I'm sure Chris and the rest of their colleagues were really involved in it. But the other thing that they did when they were setting out to create this program or whatever it is, thing, was to map the services that exist in Denver. That had not been done. And there are, I don't know how many sort of various types of providers you guys identified. We're still having these provider communities of practice or something, meetings where organizations that provide similar services are getting together, and I sit in on them sometimes and so do others, and they're like surprised to learn about each other. So we all operate in silos a lot of the time, and maybe we should have known that, but I don't think the city writ large had really absorbed that until you all did that work, and that you did it very intentionally. You took a long time about it, and it's still bearing fruit. So I just wanted to mention that was an important piece of it.
Perfect. Thank all of you for all of that. So we're going to start moving into our questions now. We have a lot to cover, and we're going to try to stick to 7. We might go just a little bit over, so we apologize, but there's more food out there if you want it. We want your full answer, but if you can keep it to 2 or 3 minutes, that way we make sure everyone gets to respond. But if you go over a bit, we're not going to slap you or anything like that. Okay. So the first topic is funding and sustainability, and this is actually going to be directed towards Council Member Parity. Okay, are you ready? Tonight we'll turn to one of the most pressing challenges facing Denver: how to sustain shelter and housing programs in the face of rising costs and budget shortfalls. Question 1. Given that the shelter hotel program costs about $40,000 per person each year, how will the city expand shelter and housing options for more residents, including families, especially given the city's budget shortfalls?
Yeah, I've been up close and personal with those figures, Lisa, because we, as you mentioned, we have a serious shortfall in family shelter. And so we, looking closely at that in the budget context, it would have been about $9 million to open a shelter that would house maybe 100 or 120 families. Obviously, you want people to move through those quickly. So I might tag team Sterling on this a little bit, but I will say that A lot of the funding for that system is sustainable because it comes from a dedicated sales tax increment. Obviously, we used a lot of one-time ARPA dollars towards All in Mile High, but a lot of that was for capital. So for obtaining buildings that we now own and getting them into shape. It was, I think, more costly than people expected to do the kind of modifications, maintenance. We eventually brought that in-house at the city, which was a whole learning curve. There's now like a guy in general services who knows those buildings like the back of his hand. Bless that man. And so hopefully, I actually think that, you know, it's a scary economy, so I'm scared to even say these things, but I think the budget that we have now for the shelters that we're operating now is pretty sustainable, and none of it's one-time funding anymore, as far as I can recall. It's general funds and it's housing, homelessness resolution funds from that tax increment. What I think we lack funding for more than that is actually on the health side, and that's partly because the cities, it's kind of our job to do that. And yet here we are at the intersection of the jail and these shelters where people are, and you know, we don't own and operate Denver Health, but we're very close to them. So, and especially with the way we fund the behavioral health services in the All in Mile High sites now is mostly through Medicaid reimbursement. And with some of the changes that are coming to Medicaid, I can just see that a lot of people in those shelters are going to get disenrolled, and then we'll have no way to keep providing them healthcare unless we pay for it another way. So I actually think we're in an okay holding pattern right now. I think buying buildings was actually a pretty good thing to do. But what the future holds if Medicaid, you know, continues to shrink is a little scary. Do you want to add anything?
Absolutely.
I do want to kind of table set on what the program is now, where we kind of started and what we envision for 2026. So briefly, I'll kind of walk through those things. But when we first took office, this was in July of 23, we saw that the really big problem that we were facing was that we had all of these large street encampments across the city, particularly here in downtown Denver. Our main focus of All in Mile High at that time was moving folks out of those encampments into those shelter settings. But now that we have gotten past that part, we're now going to be evolving to phase 2 of All in Mile High, which is really going to focus more on those behavioral health programming and an affordable permanent housing solutions to get people out, to get folks out of our shelter programs. So I've seen somewhat sunsetting of some of our shelter programs that we did have. The Comfort Inn, for instance, is a shelter facility.
Sterling, just stop.
Is this one?
Try this.
This one?
No, hear me.
Yeah,
All right.
that one, sorry.
So as you may have heard several weeks ago, we did decide to shutter the Comfort Inn shelter. That is because we are working on transitioning that to permanent housing solutions that we can then cycle people in our shelter system into. So ultimately, they will not be reliant on Denver shelter systems, that they will be on their own feet in their own housing programs. So we really do believe that right now the shelter system we have is a sustainable model, given that the long-term picture is going to be to transition those folks out and into their permanent housing solutions. So that's really going to be the next step going into 2024.
Perfect, thank you. And this, let me know if this fits into what you've already said. So, Councilmember Parity, specifically what policy or budget actions will you champion to expand shelter capacity, strengthen case management, and ensure recurring funding so these efforts last?
Well, I've done that every year that I've been a council member. I've run budget amendments to move funding towards shelter services, homeless services. And that's hard because our budget, it's interesting. I, from the outside, might have been more skeptical about elected officials describing our budget as being incredibly constrained. And I'll just tell you guys now, it just is. Like, our city employees, I think they reuse paper clips 10 times. I mean, it's just true, actually. And that's not to say that we couldn't make some priority decisions. But for example, this year, when we were looking at trying to fund behavioral healthcare services, for example, we were sort of thinking do we end up not doing lights on the city and county building? You know what I mean? It's that level of where you have to sort of say okay, we're going to make some hard priority choices that would really be a bummer for people in the city. My husband calls me Sarah, no fun, because like, I don't want to turn the lights off, but it's that level. Like we're not just able to sort of be like, oh, there's all this waste and abuse happening. There really isn't. I'm sure there's something happening that I don't know about, but for the most part, it is a down to the dollar, tight budget. And agencies give us these budgets that have these tiny line items. So I think there needs to be a lot of public conversation where we're thinking more about like, what are our priorities and what is city government doing? I think there's a lot of moral hazard in the fact that we have homeless kids in the city now, unsheltered, I should say, street homeless kids. We've never had that in Denver's history really for any extended period of time. And we're in that position now. We have hundreds of families that have been on the shelter wait list for a very long time. And it just, it snuck up on us. The other thing I would say is as a city, all of these programs have grown tremendously. If you look at the arc over the years from sort of Denver's road home time in the Hickenlooper administration, we're now sheltering, there have been 13,000 individuals in 2025 to date who have come through the shelter system, different people. And so that's not a crisis of Denver's own making, it's national, every city is facing it. And I will I'll keep doing what I'm doing, which is to me, it is absolutely priority that people be sheltered. And so I will always run those budget amendments and keep doing that. Whether we need different funding streams, I think right now we need a secure funding stream for housing at the ballot, first and foremost, because that's where we really have a lack, so that we can, move people up and out of shelter. But we fund 28 shelters that we either own or fund in the city. And we need a family shelter, but other than that, I think we kind of have what we need, and now what we need is for people to be able to get out and be successful.
Perfect, thank you. Sterling, we wanted to see if you have anything to add, but I'm going to just add quickly to what Gil just added. So, we still have a lot of services downtown, and if the hotel shelters were to close, or some of the micro communities may close, how are we going to prevent encampments from coming back downtown, given that most of the services are here?
Absolutely. So the city of Denver, first and foremost, remains committed to the encampment decommissioning plan that we set out in 2023. We do and will continue to enforce those decommissioned zones. All of downtown Denver is actually included in that, and there is no change in plan on that strategy going into 2026. When it comes to folks who are living in all-in mile-high sites, which may or may not be closed in the coming months, those folks we are working very closely with to ensure that they have a permanent housing option by the time they exit our shelters. So we are working very, very hard to make sure that at least if a shelter is being closed, that all of those people are being matched to the housing supports that they need, along with continuing case management with those clients once they exit our shelters. So that, I hope, kind of answers your question a little bit, but we do plan on moving all those folks into their permanent units, and we do continue to enforce the encampment zones that we have already laid out, and I will talk more on that later with some of those changes that we'll be implementing in 2026.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So we're going to talk about balancing compassion and safety, and anyone can respond to this, but it may be a council member Parody or Sterling might want to type in, but anyone can. So recently there was a newspaper article that illustrates the persistent public safety and quality of life challenges facing downtown. A Denver Business Journal article was about the Aloha Hat and Soul store on 16th Street, wherein the shop owner described how individuals on, she said, the pedestrian mall, observe her routine, then rush in to steal high-valued merchandise. She also talked about repeated incidents of unhoused individuals screaming, urinating, and defecating in front of her store, and said that robberies have become a weekly occurrence, problems she attributes to the intersection of homelessness and theft. She has now been forced to keep her front door locked during business hours. So here's the question. Residents and businesses often feel caught between compassion and safety. How will the city council and the mayor ensure that investments in set teams, police presence, and outreach services are balanced, sustained, and responsive to both public safety and humanitarian needs?
Thank you. So I want to get a little bit upstream of that question and maybe push back on the premise of it a little bit, because One thing I didn't mention in the budget question is that it's probably about 150 grand a year if someone's in the jail all year. So even though $40,000 a year to have them in shelter is a lot, the jail, and I actually think that's probably an underestimate when you talk about the jail, because they also had to be arrested to get into the jail, they had to be convicted, all of that costs money. When someone's going through the criminal justice system, we as Denver taxpayers are paying for the police, the prosecutors, the public defenders, the judges, and the jail and the sheriffs. That's a lot. So that's really expensive, and it in no way prevents homelessness. It usually pushes people into it more deeply. People lose benefits if they're in jail for over, depends on the benefit, but like 90 days a lot of the time, sometimes it's a month. Obviously, you're gonna lose your lease, you're gonna lose a job if you had one. And the jail actually has done a lot of really heavy lifting to try to provide treatment in the jail for people that need that if they are dealing with addiction in particular. There's a Denver Health satellite inside the jail. But it's really hard to do for all kinds of reasons because they're highly regulated substances, and you've got to have amazing Denver health workers who are willing to work in the jail, and you've got to have enough sheriff staffing to get people to, it's just an unbelievably complex environment to provide medical care. So that's not ideal. Like, and so what I want to say about the question of like how people should think about the very real impacts on every single one of us when we have people that are deeply suffering and like not functioning as members of society in the way that any of us would want, is that the real solutions involve getting way upstream of all of it. And that's not a very satisfying answer. But the only actual solution is prevention. And instead, I feel like we keep slipping further and further where we just see more and more people that absolutely cannot get back into a self-sustaining life. And so I know this is, like I said, this is a little bit unsatisfying, but the truth of the matter is that like when you think about yourself as a voter, as a citizen, Denver does tend to vote for things on our ballot that fund services, healthcare. We also have suffered a lot from the way that we restrict elected officials from being able to allocate money to those things. And if we face sort of state and federal level budget cuts, we're gonna see this get worse. Like if we cut Medicaid, the number of people who are homeless will go way up. And when you're living on the street, it would take a lot to never sort of inconvenience anyone, you know what I mean? So I think that the real solution is that people have to have a lot of clarity and a lot of political will towards funding healthcare systems, which are hemorrhaging money, taking care of our institutions like Denver Health, and getting ahead of these things. When we talk about what the city could do, I actually think it's really important for us to be really thoughtful about the budget and really thoughtful about which interventions we're sending. And those of us at this table have talked about this probably ad nauseum, this question of outreach. And what you want to do is you want to have the right worker contact someone where they're not going to like leave that person a phone number or tell them they have to go to an appointment next week or tell them someone else is going to come back and find you or something. Unfortunately, often that right worker is Chris, so there's only one of them. We can't clone him. But what you want is for the person, whoever gets in contact with them, to have enough knowledge of these just like arcane systems to be able to get that person something that will be a meaningful step towards resolving the situation that they're in. And that can be all kinds of things. I think I will let Chris give examples of what that has been sometimes for people that he's known, because I love his examples. But you can't trade anything for like the expertise of that outreach worker and the knowledge that they have to avoid the referral black hole. And so really like the most meaningful thing we can do is like make sure that as a city we know what the services landscape is and that we really invest in when we contact people, being serious about trying to figure out what they need to resolve their situation, because the jail won't resolve it. It just won't. And I know that if someone's hurting others, that they need to go there. So please don't get me wrong about that. But it would be great if then they didn't just end up out on the street doing it again, which is what will happen. Something really memorable that Matt and Chris told me was that they learned that there were something like 80 people in Denver that have been arrested like 11 times or more in a single year, have been in the jail. Like that's the most insane waste of public resources that I've ever heard. And that was part of the kernel of starting the ROSE program. So I think thinking really hard about outreach is important, and we've been doing that. And also making sure that when an outreach worker, whoever that may be, contacts someone, that they don't sort of further, if possible, because you can't control people's state of mind, but that they don't further make that person feel like there's no point talking to an outreach worker ever again. So it's high stakes when we actually contact someone. And the last thing I'll say about that is some types of outreach are a lot more expensive than others. A uniformed police officer is a very expensive outreach worker, and they have to be trained on things that I want them to spend most of their time being trained on, like how to use a firearm. So they should be spending their time there. Sending someone with all of that training and that expertise, and that we only have X amount of authorized positions for, to be an outreach worker, to me, rarely makes sense. So those are some of my thoughts about that. Do you want to rest? Do you want to talk about something? I like your examples.
What about the shop owner? It didn't really answer the question as much. I mean, we're talking about right now, there's a shop owner
I
who's,
can answer this.
please, yeah.
Is that okay, Lisa?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I want to be respectful of the other panelists, but since you're asking me, like I said, I understand why that's not satisfying, because prevention, we didn't prevent whatever got this person into the circumstance who's at your doorstep causing harm. You absolutely need to call the police if someone's being violent. I mean, that's very, very clear. But a whole lot of people who are currently unhoused are not doing that at any given moment, and if we could, and are more likely to slip in that direction the longer they're without like a place in human society. Like that, people get more and more and more damaged the longer they're out on the street. So getting people indoors is urgent and preventative, and if we don't attend to that, and we only attend to the policing side, we're just digging ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper. So I'm not saying not to do it, but we have got to also fund the other things. And what tends to happen in a tight budget is we cut and cut and cut and cut at the preventative stuff. And that's how we get 13,000 people in our shelters, which is, I mean, that number is like almost the size of the town I grew up in. So anyway.
But you addressed this in February, and you've made no progress. And, do we have to wait for another stabbing for anything to move forward? You've made absolutely no progress, and you're giving the same exact answers that you guys did in February.
Yeah. I want to, so on that petty theft question that did come up a little earlier, this is something that we are going to be very focused on in 2026. As the councilwoman rightly mentioned, oftentimes the sheriff's department does turn into the provider of first resort for those most vulnerable people. And that just shows a clear demonstration of our failure to prevent these types of crimes. But there will always be an enforcement piece to this that is needed, particularly when prevention fails. We are actually working quite closely with the district attorney's office as well to stand up new guidelines for how we deal with petty theft. It's not something that we want to continue to see downtown, especially as we're continuing to rely on sales tax revenue down here. So I don't want to preempt the policy shop right now. Maybe you might have some more to add, Matt James, but we are going to be rolling out some new changes with respect to how we deal with petty theft, because this is something that we just don't want to continue to see downtown Denver. It's something that comes up anytime we meet with business owners. It's something that's been a consistent problem here, and it's something we really want to spend 2026 addressing with these new changes. I don't know if you have.
So let me interject, because we're next going to state laws and local ordinances. Let me just state that, because I don't know if any of you live downtown. I mean, maybe not. It's no big, you do, Sterling, thank you. But anyway, I think we're the ones that see this every day. We see that we're trying to get more sales tax revenues. We have businesses that, she's struggling to survive, and now she's having to deal with this. We have increased police presence, the SET team, but we're still seeing issues. And any time of day or night, you see many, many unhoused individuals, some that have come for services, some that, and they have a right to be here, but they can be yelling at people, they can be aggressive with us. Some are just clearly in crisis. And so that's kind of where we're coming from. And so I wanted to just interject that really quickly, because that's one of our main concerns. And that's the reason we had the town hall, the number of emails, texts, and pictures that I'm getting from people that say, okay, there's, a guy yelling at Green Bay Packer fans, an unhoused man. And we just don't need that. We need to figure out a way to help them so that we can make this a thriving and get the sales revenue we need to help those people. So it's kind of a catch-22. So I just want to interject that. But we are going to move into our next topic, which is state laws. So Senator Ball. State laws sometimes restrict what local governments can do when it comes to involuntary treatment. Regarding competency of a person, there's a high bar, as there should be, to hold a person. However, it seems that our competency laws are also impede helping people who can't help themselves by making the decision for treatment. Question 1. What legislative changes at the state level would give Denver more tools to expand treatment options for people experiencing severe mental illness issues or drug addiction?
Thank you so much for the question. So I'm probably going to be a broken record on this because, and I'll get to the trade-offs on the state law we're talking about, but a big thing that I want people to understand here is that state law does not impact what is happening right now because there is nowhere for people to go, like, period. So we have 2 state-run psychiatric hospitals in this state. There are 6 million people who live in Colorado. We are 46th out of 50th in mental health funding. There is nowhere for people to go. There's a place called the Psychiatric Emergency, what's the S for? Service? The PES. It's kind of like the Psych ER at Denver Health. My visit there when I first started working at the city was one of the most eye-opening things I have seen as someone who has called Denver home for a long time. When someone's involuntarily committed at Denver Health, they stay there for 24 hours, maybe 7 days, and they leave because there are no beds. There's nowhere for people to go. It is a revolving door because, and Denver Health just opened up 12 more beds, which is amazing for folks who have serious mental illnesses, but also have a physical disability. But I don't know the math now, but I think our total number at Denver Health is probably still less than 50. I mean, it's just paltry. And so, you know, the big thing that we need to do as a state is we have to build more. Maryland has about the same number of people as Colorado. They have 5 psychiatric institutions in Maryland. That's not enough. And it's not just on the bedside. I think as we've all been talking about, there's just, you know, if we don't invest in mental health, we're really not going to impact it. On the question of state law, I mean, look, this is a tough issue. On one hand, I mean, you know, involuntarily committing somebody, that is the biggest seizure of your civil liberties and personal autonomy, like, imaginable. That you haven't even committed a crime, right? That's the government coming and saying, we're going to remove your right to make decisions for yourself. On the other hand, actually, I learned this on Thanksgiving. I have a cousin who's homeless right now on the streets of Oakland. And like, that was the topic at the dinner table. And Thanksgiving, I don't know where he is. His family doesn't know where he is. And if it took somebody coming in and forcing him to get treatment for the fentanyl that he's addicted to and the mental illness that he's developed from maybe pre-existing, but, you know, living on the streets, then yeah, you know, I would absolutely take that. And, you know, you've got Chris Richardson here, who is such a gifted social worker. I mean, he has saved the lives of so many people here in Denver. I think good social workers know how to use those tools. They know when, you know, involuntary commitment is appropriate. They know when it's not. And I will just say, in my experience, having worked closely with that, changing that bar really won't make much of an impact.
All right, thank you. And a second question for you is, currently, there is energy in the state capitol to increase medical beds for people suffering with mental illness. What is being discussed, and do you think that we are going to be able to increase treatment options for those in need?
Not without money. So I've been in this job since January, so not even a full calendar year. This is the $3 billion budget deficit that I've faced now. Tabor is going to continue to strangle this state until we do something about it. And I think as a state, we've been like shopping at the dollar store, but expecting like Neiman Marcus, right? We have to make a decision. Do we want to invest in things that are going to solve these problems that impact everybody? I mean, I deeply sympathize with everybody in this room. It frustrates me. I think even on the enforcement side, to the police conversation, like, you know, DPD, for the most part, isn't doing a lot about property crime because of resources. Like, their officers are doing other things. So I think we need to make a decision. Do we, are we willing to have the government retain more revenue? It's not even the voting on your taxes part, but just, can we benefit from Colorado doing well economically so that we can invest in mental health? I think there's a ton of momentum at the state capitol to invest in this space. We got sued and we lost, and we've been under a consent decree because we haven't been providing enough mental health services to people in the criminal justice system. It's unclear when we're going to come out from under that. So I think the political will is there. It's the money that's not there. And that's what we have to do something about.
Yeah, that was a-
Okay, you want to follow up to that? Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, it's always a little surreal to me. I don't live downtown. And so but I want everyone to know that I know for sure the folks at this table, I mean, Sterling and I have been at we've been out talking to people in houses together many, many, many times. And before that, I mean, again, part of the reason I'm here is because like in my very first job at Legal Aid, I would have, retired widows telling me, if you don't save my house, I'm going to be homeless. Dealing with sort of the trauma of people's poverty and just what people have been through that's gotten them to that place has been a huge part of my life. And it's not like, because I have the same experience you do if I'm talking to someone who's unhoused. They're probably mad at me, I may feel threatened and uncomfortable. So I just want to say that, we all have that experience too, all the time. And so we're not coming from a place of naivete. And it really is like, we don't have a chance to try so many things that we could be doing as a city because we're trading things off against each other. So it's funny because I didn't think I was going to just come in here and sort of be like, we need more funding, but since Matt said it, I'll say it too. And I want to just say that since you said what you said, Senator, my sister's nephew died of an overdose last summer. I actually, one of the things when we talk about mental health beds is it's not actually just people who are incarcerated or homeless who need mental health beds. I've had someone in the most severe imaginable mental health crisis in my immediate family ongoing for the last year, and I've been in the position of being the person who's calling around all the psychiatric hospitals, and there are no beds for this person who is extremely financially well off. So I don't know how many of you all have tried to access mental health care for yourselves or someone in your families. It's not there. And so it's really not there if you're living under an underpass. So I just like to remind, I think actually most of us have probably been impacted by these things and been able to work our way through it due to resources, or maybe not. My sister's nephew is the son of 2 attorneys and he still died. So I just think that's worth remembering. I really doubt there's anyone here who's unaffected within their personal circles.
Thank you. Okay, so as a lead in to Deputy DA James, we are going to have our first Mentimeter question. So if you have your phones available, we'll do that now, and that will lead us into some additional questions. Jen Kellison is here. She set this up for us. She's on the UpDoNA board, so she's going to explain it.
Thank you. So if you can take out your phones, and if you would go to the picture ID, you can get to that QR code, and that'll take you into our Mentimeter. Or if you want to go into menti.com and enter those numbers there, we're going to get our first question up here shortly. So we want to directly hear from you. What we're going to do is the next question that I'll pose, is it going to be a word cloud? And so that is going to be you entering 2 to 3 words about this next question. And we're just going to build a word cloud up here about how you're feeling. So let us know if you don't want to take a picture though.
That's okay.
Or you got to turn it to me and I'll smile really big. But what's going to happen is as you get that photo, it's going to open up that other link down below. Let us know if you have any issues getting in. You might have some people that can help you get to that QR code. Otherwise, that menti.com and that number are going to still remain up at the top, so you can get there that way as well.
think if you zoom in on that code, that might help you pick it up.
So you're getting that?
Yeah, that's right.
And it should have an
You gotta
arrow.
wait.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Don't worry if you couldn't get to the QR code. If you can't get there, try the menti.com. So here we go. This first question is, let's see, sorry about that. What 2 or 3 words come to mind when you think about quality of life crimes and the impact on your sense of safety? What we mean by quality of life crimes are non-violent offenses that impact the quality of life. These might include shoplifting, drug use, threatening behaviors, graffiti, etc. So as you type in, you're going to start to see some of the words come up on our word cloud here.
I want to look at pictures.
How is this impacting your sense of safety? So fear is rising to the top. See other noted ideas such as anxious, intimidation, unsafe, disappointed, scary. Unsafe is starting to rise, anxious.
Interesting.
So you can see the ones rising to the top. And so thank you for that first poll. We're going to have another question later. But we're going to now turn to Deputy DA James. Thank you.
And thanks, Jen, for that. And I think this helps you know a little bit more how we feel downtown with things that are going on. And it's a lot better. We don't have the encampments, but we still have the unhoused that act erratically. And we have compassion. We want to help them. But the quality of life crimes, this is how it makes us feel. So thank you for your input, everyone. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to move into your first question. So you've been asked to address the quality of life crimes downtown. Can you tell us what you're focusing on right now?
So one of the big things that I'm really working on focusing on is trying to figure out what kind of interventions we can offer people to try to move the needle, to try to stop this stuff. One of the biggest challenges I think I face as a public safety professional, and I think that DPD officers and others face the same challenge, is dealing with a lot of individuals who are not committing particularly serious offenses, not the kinds of people that you look at and say, you know, this person needs to go to prison, this person needs to be locked up for a long time. They're the people that are committing the types of offenses that you say, you know, this is unfortunate, this makes people feel uncomfortable, this is a drain on a small business. Talk to a lot of business owners who are just constantly frustrated by the people that are making their customers feel uncomfortable, that are causing small but persistent financial drains through small thefts. And you know, what we are working on is really trying to fit treatment options to those people where it's possible, where it seems like that's possible to move the needle to help people. And I think that goes into a lot of the options and a lot of the alternatives that people have been talking about so far. These resources are really programs that we want to use to try to help people if we can, because in so many of these cases, it's not impossible, or it's not possible to incarcerate your way out of it because the penalties for this stuff is just not that much. You know, you can put someone in custody or in jail for 10 days or a month or even a couple months, and that will be an immediate stop to that problem immediately. But at the same time, in 90 days, when they get out of custody, that problem might just start up again. What we need is really resources to help these people in a long-term way and to give them options so they aren't just ending up back on the streets. That's not to say, though, that, we're not going to do what we have to do to try to improve public safety. If people keep coming back and keep committing violations of law, I feel we have no alternative but to seek greater punishments as, these things accumulate. But, if we have options, if we have ways that we can help these folks, that's really what I think is going to ultimately provide a solution. An example that I've been dealing with personally in the last little bit, we have a guy who was over at John's Manville Plaza, and this guy's thing is breaking windows. He likes to break windows. Big expensive windows like these that surround us right now. And he came back over a period of days to break a series of windows there, caused about $8,000 worth of damage. That's a felony offense, so I could try to send this guy to prison if I think that will help. But looking at his situation, I came to learn that he had a set of cases dismissed back in June because he was found to be permanently incompetent and unlikely to be restored to competency. So what I'm faced with now is a situation where I need to find a way to try to get this guy some resources and try to find a solution to this so he is not out there breaking windows again when he gets out of custody because he is found incompetent again in a period of months. And right now, I'll be straight, we're trying to keep that guy in custody so he doesn't break more windows. Because I think that's the thing to do right now until we find a place to have him land. But at the same time, Roads to Recovery is right now our #1 choice to try to help him to try to break this cycle because it offers the resources, because it offers the options and the wraparound services that we think he needs to get out of this cycle. And I use this individual as an example because, we really face tough choices in these situations. And I feel so much empathy for the shopkeepers, for the residents who are having to deal with these things on a day-to-day basis because it's not easy. And you do develop compassion fatigue trying to find resources for people that, aren't directly, it's not your fault that they're in this situation. But, I think what we can do is really respond to stop the problem in an immediate sense, and then reach out to the treatment resources that exist to really try to find resources and help for these individuals long-term to hopefully break the cycle that they're caught in.
Perfect, thank you. So, go ahead, Chris.
And just to piggyback on that a little bit, if it is who I think you're talking about, so that individual's in a sober living right now. He still has to face the criminal justice system that's going to be attached to that, but he has a case manager assigned. We got him connected with mental health services before he was even out. And so the goal, and also part of it is there is a carrot to the end of that, is if he completes this program, which is like 1.5 years, I think it is, there's housing at the end of that. So there is also the incentive. So it took a little bit of the, what the heck is going on? You keep coming down here and this is the behavior. He's not well. And so the conversation then becomes, how do we stabilize him while he's in custody? Not our favorite place to get treatment is in the jail. But once he's stable, we can have that conversation of, all right, what do we need to do to figure out some of the logistics with this? How do we work with the criminal justice side of this house to actually support this guy? And how do we actually hold him accountable for whatever might be coming down the pike with some of this stuff, whether that's restoration or whatever next services. And in a perfect world, we get to come back 2 years from now and we say he's stably housed, he has all the services that are still continuing. He's going to be at the next meeting with you guys. I don't know, something truly amazing. But I think those are some of the stories that we do come in contact with, that we want to be proactive as much as we can. And with the partnerships that we have across the city, from outreach to DPD to SET to to Ryan and his team, we can actually connect with people after the fact as well, especially when we know a crime is related to a behavioral health thing, that it's like, hey, we have to arrest on this situation, and we think there's a possibility this person could get some help if they cleared up or had the ability to have a conversation in a structured setting, and then we can game plan on the back end. So there isn't like a wrong door necessarily, it's just aligning kind of the shift to be able to actually make sure everyone's communicating in real time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Lisa, I'm really sorry. I know you have another
okay.
question. I want to add something to this that I've learned since I've been on city council, or learned in a different way, which is that when we talk about treatment beds, there are a lot of different kinds of treatment that a person could need. And for those who are like work in healthcare, you're like, yeah. But it took me some time to really get my head around that. And that it's extremely hard when you encounter someone like out on the street, if you're like in the shoes of Chris or his team, to figure that out quickly. And some examples are a huge proportion of people who fall into homelessness. A study that I think was in a Canadian city, so it might not apply here, was like 30% of them had a traumatic brain injury at some point. And that really often leads to addiction because people are trying to self-medicate for symptoms that they have for some reason. A whole lot of people have intellectual and developmental disabilities that may or may not be diagnosed. If those get diagnosed, we have an incredible safety net from a property tax bill that we have in the city. So if someone has IDD, they're going to get treatment more so than for a lot of other things. There may be, I think Aaron told me once about encountering someone who was living by Villa Park in that encampment who was addicted to fentanyl but also needed to be on kidney dialysis. And so they had not been able to go into addiction treatment because they needed kidney dialysis and they were definitely going to die in that tent, So that's why the quality of the outreach matters so much. And why, when we talk about treatment, it could be a lot of different things. And the challenge is in that navigation and getting people into these systems that the city doesn't run. And that's where we have to resource those things if we're going to get people not to be, committing another string of window breaking because whatever, I don't know what that person's like drivers are, right? But I bet there's something that could get them out of that situation.
And I think, so the next question talks about, I know you guys are talking about, that it can't just be about incarceration, and we agree with that. But then you have the store owner who is being dramatically affected. And I've met with the police for years, and this is one thing that I hear over and over and over. So in the last few years, we've seen significant criminal justice reforms. Changes have affected company standards, petty theft penalties, drug classifications, catch and release practices, and personal recognizance bond or cashless bail. Under cashless bail, a first-time offender charged with a low-level crime typically avoids jail time. What frustrates the public, however, is when someone who is charged with a minor offense repeatedly fails to appear, sometimes 4 or 5 times, yet continues to receive personal recognizance bonds. What barriers do you face, and this is for you, Deputy DA James, what barriers do you face in prosecuting these cases and ensuring accountability for repeat offenders?
So one of the things that I'm working on is really trying to build a...
Try the other microphone.
This might be the bad one. I'll banish it to here.
One of the things that I'm really working on in my current position is building a forum and building paths where we can get communication from the people in the community and put that into our cases so we can bring that information to the judges that we're in front of. One, so we can seek appropriate bonds in cases, whether that's a bond with monetary conditions attached, whether that's a bond with some kind of a pretrial services or supervision attached to it. What I really am focused on right now is building connections with the community and building pathways for community members to provide input on these things so we can bring that information to the judges. In these situations, we're always going to do everything we can to try to ensure that people are engaged with the criminal justice system, fulfilling what they need to do as far as coming to court. not violating the law and doing those kinds of things. Sometimes I think it might be lost on certain judges or in certain situations, the impacts that these kinds of offenses are having on people, the lower level offenses. So what I really want to do is build ways for people in the community to talk with us so we can pass those messages along to the judge. I know people are busy and it's hard for them to come into court and talk about how an offense or how an incident has impacted them, particularly if it's not a very serious one. So I want to have ways that we can get that information and bring it to the judges so they can understand why this is a problem and so they can make the right decision about whether this person needs to be held in custody or whether some other option is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Chris, we kind of want to ask you the same question. We know that Roads to Recovery is all about getting treatment and helping individuals, but there are laws, though, that in ordinances, regulatory requirements that limit Roads to Recovery's ability to provide services to people experiencing homelessness, mental health issues, or drug addiction. What changes need to be made to remove those barriers?
This was like my wish list question, so I absolutely those wrong. Yeah, when I got this question, I had like everything ran through my head all at once. So it's going to be word salad, so I apologize. I think a lot of our individuals that we do see that interact with the jail system, is kind of how the councilwoman referenced, their services get shut off when they're into custody. And so what we see consistently is someone saying, I'm ready to make a change. I want to do this to connect to services, but we can't connect someone to like a Medicaid provider or a mental health system when they don't have active Medicaid, and they can't have active Medicaid while in custody. And there is nothing currently set up that allows it to be like preloaded for when they're released. So we get caught in this weird, you get released and then we have to hope that you got released on a day that's not like December 4th, because it will be the turn of the next month before your Medicaid kicks on. There is the Medicaid 1115 waiver that was thrown out there as a problem solved for that. It sounds like in July that got kind of squashed a smidge. So I think there is still the ability to actually talk about how do we actually get some of these services turned on so that we can connect individuals prior to release instead of just handing them a referral form and saying good luck connecting with a service in the community that's already complicated. You touched on it a little bit earlier, the 2765-109, so basically the mental health laws around holds. 72 hours is the max that someone is allowed to be held in a facility before it has to go into like short-term certification and stuff. Sometimes the biggest frustration that we also have is individuals that are placed on mental health holds and we see them go to the hospital and they are released within 2 hours back into the community. This is impacting the community because of behaviors that we sometimes see, and then they return right back to the community with the exact same behaviors. And it's because either we're really good sometimes at going to certain situations and just knowing what to say in that moment. Sometimes that clarity can also happen. A lot of our clients are really good at, they can hold it together for a short amount of time for 1-2 hours. But if you made it 6, you kind of see those behaviors start to come up. But there is no minimum to how long someone has to be within there to be able to kind of have a full-blown psychiatric. Now that also comes with, do we have bed available to actually allow that to take place? So that is something I would want to address, of like, how do we actually have a more robust assessment when they do get to a hospital system. I think we do have a very good involuntary treatment system in the state and the city. We have mechanisms for it. We have the ability to influence it. We do not utilize it. We do not utilize it for many different reasons. You know, we had the whole 1960s, everyone's incarcerated in a mental health facility. We pushed everyone back out in the big deinstitutionalization, but we swung so far the other side that we want everything to be done on a voluntary basis. And I think my experience working with some of these populations is there's about 1% of our community that actually doesn't have the insight, and their symptoms are so high that you can't even have a conversation of what recovery might look like or what might be beneficial. So actually being able to like influence, how do we tap a little bit more into the civil commitment system where it's not someone having to be in a hospital system for their entire life as they deal with treatment, but they can be in the community. We just have a little bit more guardrails up of how we help maintain their psychiatric stability. That is assessed on a 3-6 month kind of basis. So someone can get off that. If they all of a sudden have insight and they're saying, I'm going to take meds on my own, I'm going to do really well, they'll drop that. And then someone can take on the voluntary side. But I think sometimes our populations that we see, and it's probably, if I had to generalize, the individuals that you're seeing screaming on a corner, those are the individuals that probably are the ones that would flow closest to being able to look at that civil commitment side. As of right now, there's only one entity in the entire city that holds outpatient certifications. That is the Mental Health Center of Denver. They only hold about 90 of them. And there's a lot of argument to be made that I would say that if you are a Medicaid provider that receives funds to provide mental health support, you should almost be forced to have to take a certain portion of this, because then it distributes. But there's a lot of pushback on wanting to go the involuntary route. And I don't want to advocate everyone should be involuntary. It is a small subset that actually we can see a lot of positive growth from in that way. Parity with insurance is always a big issue, totally unrelated. That's just a general mental health parity is lip service at the current moment. And then I just had to throw this in there just because it touches my own heart. The big beautiful bill just declassified me as a professional. So we have a lot more people that are no longer going to be coming into this field because they are not going to have the financial support to actually do it. So we're already a struggling profession. So we're not even going to be able to recruit people coming in our direction. So if you want to argue that, there's an ASW has a place you can go and sign a petition for that. So.
Thank you for that. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to chime in because we're talking about state laws. So I think there's a couple of state laws that are worth looking at. I love Chris's idea about a minimum that folks, have to stay, even if you don't have enough beds. I think there's a certain amount of time where, like Chris was saying, somebody can make it seem like they're ready to go out after 2 hours, but in all likelihood, if that person was civilly committed about their health, they have something that you need to really have them stay and take a look at and make sure you're not just running a revolving door. And I think, to the question about failure to appears, I think that's worth looking at too. We've done a lot of bail reform in the state. We've done a lot of criminal justice reform in the state, like the question said. And I've been a big proponent of it. I used to practice criminal defense law. But I also think it is worth looking at, what has happened with that and are there unintended consequences. I think for the bail reform, a lot of that was really directed at not the population that we're talking about, but people who get booked into jail, and if they don't get out on bond, they miss work and they get fired and they lose their housing. And that's really most of the folks that come through the criminal justice system. So I think a lot of that movement was good. At the same time, there is this subset, and I think to Chris's point, you're kind of talking about a number of different types of people. There's a subset where I'm cynical enough to believe that laws don't enforce themselves. You need to have some enforcement. And if folks keep skipping their court date, then I do think that we should have the tools for a judge to be able to take that privilege away. Last thing I'll say just on state law, a little state law that I ran last year that made a change that does impact this is and I think is a good example of this. So on the PR bond, personal recognizance bond issue, there was one provision for automatic PR bonds where you had to let people out of jail within 6 hours. So what was happening though is, and we broke down all the data when I was at the city, we had hundreds of people a year who were getting released from jail in the middle of the night because if you get booked at 9 p.m., they had to release you by 3 a.m. And we would have like a bed waiting in Road to Recovery, ready to put that person in a sober living home or something like that. The person wanted to stay in jail, the jail was fine holding them, but they had to release that person or else they would have violated state law. So we changed that. I ran a bill last year that now allows that person to stay until the morning when you can actually make a handoff out of jail into the hands of a service provider. But I do think those types of tweaks are worth looking at to make sure that we're not actually failing people because of some of these well-meaning laws that we've passed.
Thank you very much for that. Sterling, we want to ask you a question and other people may want to chime in. And So the mayor has said he intends to take a tougher stance on individuals who are unhoused and repeatedly commit crimes, require them to choose between treatment or the criminal justice system. What concrete steps will be taken to implement this approach?
Absolutely. So as Chris mentioned a little earlier, there are several different city departments that actually take the lead when it comes to resolving mental health and drug abuse crises, things of that nature. The costs of those programs have ballooned over the last 10 to 15 years. The main thing that we're looking at right now is figuring out how we can unify all of our service providers into a pipeline that makes sense, making sure that we have the right people responding to the right emergency, if it's public safety, sending DPD, if it is related to mental health or drug abuse, making sure that we get a case manager out there as well. We are very focused right now on looking at how we can make changes to our justice system, especially in the Denver County courts, trying to see what we can do to bring our drug courts back into place in a way that they haven't been in the last 10 years. We are also going to be expanding the downtown patrols, which we already have right now, but we're going to be expanding the resources that come with those patrols. Right now, our lead has really been DPD with that law enforcement presence. We are looking at expanding the hours at which we'll be having patrols downtown. But we're also going to be looking at ensuring that those patrols are actually joined with the case manager, with the service provider who can actually make those referrals after hours that the police officer generally cannot. So we really hope that in 2026, we can try out this new model to where it's easier to get folks that are picked up on downtown, on the mall, into the services that they need. I, again, don't want to preempt our policy department, given that we haven't announced a lot of these changes. Expect to hear more about those come early Q1 of next year. But we are looking at making some of those changes in our county courts, in our enforcement pipelines, and I look forward to sharing more when the time comes.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into our second Mentimeter question. And this will kind of put a cap on this whole topic of involuntary treatment and the laws. So get ready. I'm going to have Jen come back up and explain this one too.
All right, thank you. So if you can get back into Mentimeter, or if you need to get logged back in, it's up at the top. This question, we would just really appreciate you ranking these so you can choose the selection in order of importance. So help us weigh in on this question. When it comes to addressing addiction and mental health downtown, which approach do you believe is most important? Greater accountability and tougher consequences, protecting the right to refuse treatment, allowing involuntary treatment in certain cases, expanding access to treatment and recovery services. So we'll let you choose in order, and then I'll display shortly. So we've got 11 out of about 50 people responded. If you make a mistake and want to reorder it, you can use your arrows up and down and slot those around.
Yeah, I did. I was asking a question while we're waiting. Councilwoman, you earlier said individuals are not conducting themselves like we want them to in society. What does that mean for you specifically? And what does that we or them, what is that standard? What does that look like? How are they supposed to act? Does they need a benchmark?
Yeah, that's a really good and fair question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, Mr. Lundy asked me, I said people may not be conducting themselves like we as the whole society would want them to. And I'm glad I'm taking this as a little bit of a call out and I appreciate it. What I mean by that is just that all of us are raised not to, confront other people, interact with other people in ways that makes them uncomfortable. We spend a lot of time as children growing up and being acclimated to behave in a way where we all kind of know we're on the same page, we're all comfortable, et cetera. Not everyone can do that, which is part of what I think you're getting at.
A little bit. I just, sometimes I'm alarmed when I sit in a room full of, what I see is predominantly white folks. And they say we, because the other population is other. And then I hear to say, what do you want?
Yeah.
How do you want us to act?
I will say that, like, I also worry when I hear all this talk about like the mayor's approach where he says he's gonna lean in more on enforcement, but then that's described as we're gonna send more social work teams with that. What I have heard, or I guess what I feel like is true within the city, is that where we lack resources, I mean, we have space in the jail. We have lots of space in the jail. The jail's a little understaffed, that's a problem. It's very hard to hire sheriffs, it's a terrible job. DPD is 98% staffed. We have, you know, we are not in a situation where we are drastically lacking resources in that enforcement ecosystem. The courts are operating, it is hard to get a police officer to come and respond to property crime and low-level crime, as someone mentioned, because those are the lowest priority for them. And so it's just gonna take them the most time to get there in the tiers of seriousness of what's going on. But also, if the police officer does end up responding, their options are basically either to call someone else, which then takes more time, book the person into the jail, which again, no matter how long you hold them there, they're eventually gonna get out, and they live here. And in the meantime, you have probably made whatever was going on much worse. I don't know who here has been into the jail very much. I think it's worth doing, like going and you can take tours, the sheriff will take people around. It's a grim place, and no one who doesn't absolutely need to be there for their own safety or the safety of others, and by safety, I mean safety from being physically injured or attacked, should be there. It's a bad place. The sheriff has his job partly because his father spent a lot of time in that jail when he was a kid. That didn't do any good for his family. So I'm sorry, I'm circling around your question a little bit, Stuart, but I think part of what we're agreeing on when we talk about criminal laws is like, what are our shared standards, you know, and I think we need to be extremely thoughtful about, we've criminalized a lot of things that to me don't indicate that someone, if they had other choices, would want to be harming anyone else. So we've criminalized sitting on this mall. We've criminalized public urination. If you don't have a home, where the hell are you gonna urinate? We don't have public restrooms in the city. We've criminalized all kinds of things that essentially say that if you're existing in public and you don't have a private place to be, you can be picked up by the police and taken to the jail at any given time. And I care about that both because I think it makes we deepen the social harm. Every time we send people through those systems, they don't come out better. So that's harmful to their families, that's harmful to people around them, but most importantly, it is harmful to them. And if you have ever had someone that got caught up in these cycles where you don't have any resources, you don't have a home, you know, you end up trying to get by however you can, you end up in the criminal justice system. I don't think anyone feels like that is effective. It's not effective for any of us. And the problem is when we say that we're going to be tough on crime and what we mean is we want to send more social workers, we're signaling to the public that what we need is more police or more enforcement, when what we need is more healthcare. We can't involuntarily commit people to nowhere. I have had someone in my life that I really wanted to involuntarily commit. This person was a threat to themselves. I could not get them involuntarily committed. So we have to start talking and thinking differently about these things, or it is going to metastasize. And we're going to go from 13,000 people unhoused to God knows how many more, because we are making it impossible for people ever to climb out once they're in. And it could be any of our family members. I'm sorry to say that. If you don't have anyone in your life that's ever got stuck in some kind of cycle, God bless you, but that's not the case for the vast majority of us. I'm sorry. Thank you for asking me the question, but I don't think that criminalization is ever going to get us to a better result.
But Nance, look at the score up there. Majority of the people say greater accountability and tougher on consequences.
Right. And I know, and I'm just, that's why I want to be honest.
Let me finish. I'm saying that
That's not the result.
Oh, it isn't? Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so here are the results. So more people have chosen to prioritize expanding access to treatment and recovery services, followed by greater accountability and tougher consequences, then allowing for involuntary treatment and then protecting the right to refuse treatment. So that's how tonight's poll shook out. We're going to have some more opportunities for other questions as well through the Mentimeter. So we'll have another option to ask some questions as well. So.
Gil, do you want to take over?
Take over.
Take over.
We've come a long ways here in this conversation, and we're going to move back to roads to recovery. We think there's some more.
Hear you.
He's too tall.
There's a little difference in size here. I don't know if you know. I have problems with these things. So let's move back to Chris. And roads to recovery has faced significant headwinds in expanding treatment capacity. My understanding is that your budget was reduced by $2.7 million last year, with $1.3 million being put back into it this year. So first, is that accurate? And then secondly, tell us what the impact is of your budget has been in the ability for you to provide services.
Sure, yeah, I don't believe that's accurate. I think it's about $2 million that goes towards personnel, $2 million towards service connection, and then $2 million towards a provider that we use directly. I think the difficulty with the funding conversation turns into who are we saying no to from a funnel source? Where does our resource cap hit? Anybody that wants to access something, we have not had one situation where we're not able to pay or help manage the situation through the current funding, but it does limit our ability to actually partner with really great stakeholders that we really desperately want to, just because we don't have the back-end capacity to provide good service, which is really what our intention is, or the amount of service connection that would be required. So the goal is that we continue to build on this year after year after year and continue to add more to the tapestry and the safety net that we have created already. I think in totality, Road to Recovery has about 18 staff. And then we have some outreach teams that kind of flirt with us a little bit, where we're like, okay, you let us know if you find someone that says yes to something, and now you just became part of the Road to Recovery. We'll bring that person in, but it's more of an informal relationship. So, and Ryan and his team are part of that as well. Like, you sell someone on something, we will help you figure out how to get there. So. But we want to be able to do that much more, I think much more intentionally. And then, I mean, and this is my personal thing, is Road to Recovery is meant to really impact this, our unhoused community, our most in need community. But there's also community members out there that are experiencing suicidal ideation. There's individuals that are still struggling to access services that don't fall into the bucket that we're currently doing, that I would love to open this up to. I want a system that anybody that says, I need help and I want to get that support can access it. It doesn't have all the barriers and struggles.
And one thing I would say from my perspective, I think what I'll call the limitation of Roads to Recovery is that they just have limited resources right now. I, at some point, went to Aaron Atencio, one of the Roads to Recovery staff people, and said, you know, I would love to do a training about this with the DA's office. Like, I think a lot of people could be helped by this. And, you know, I would love to bring this to more people. The issue with that is that they just don't have enough resources to fulfill to meet the demand that we have in terms of people that could be helped by this. So it's not anything that they're doing wrong. It's just a limitation of staff, limitation of funding, limitation of the resources. You know, there's a lot of people out there that could be helped by this. I think the real challenge is just getting enough quantity of those people and those programs to bring it to the people that can utilize it.
Okay. So beyond funding and laws, what do you see as the most significant barriers preventing Roads to Recovery from reaching your goals? And you've got 55 minutes to answer.
So I wrote down some things. I did say sometimes it's just the left hand talking to the right hand, between my side of the fence being CGIS compliant and then behavioral health side being HIPAA compliant, and then you have the homeless system that's HMIS compliant. And I can't access HMIS, they can't access my system. So sometimes it's hard to actually say, it's one person that we're trying to help, and we're all touch pointing that, but we don't have the ability to talk to each other. And sometimes it's because we choose to get in the way of ourselves sometimes. A great example would be someone that we knew had housing access. They were picked for the lottery, they had a voucher, and it was first person to find this person, give them good news. Like, this is a great opportunity. Police found them first. They delivered that news, and then we reached out to the provider to say, okay, where do we need to get them? Who's gonna outreach? Someone come out here, and they said, we can confirm or deny this person is in service with us. And we all knew it, and we're just like sitting there like, why can we not help this person get off the street right now? And I don't need treatment history, I don't need anything. I just need to know, how do I help this person get to you? And that's like a self-made barrier that I just think sometimes we hide behind some of these without the intention of how do we actually help the person that's in front of us. So I think we're going to try to keep building on how do we bridge that gap, how do we manage that gap. I think road recovery specifically, the biggest barrier that we did find is, I don't know if you know this, but our profession is very underpaid for our staff. So we were really intentional when we hired our staff that they are hired at about $83,000 to $89,000, which is unheard of in our field. So we got a pool of really good staff, and we're likely to keep them, which is another thing in this field, that you have people that turn over, and then you have clients that consistently see, well, my person's going to leave after 10 months now. I have a great relationship, but oh well, I'm going to get the next person. So this is really incentivizing staff to maintain and really make this the career in the city to help this population and be with people long term. And then I think we've all probably said it, we want a system in place that actually allows no matter who is in that position to be able to run. And right now it's still kind of run on reputation. It's still run on like, Chris, who do you know at Denver Health that you can like nudge to say, we need this person really like assessed and done all that stuff. And so I think in a perfect world, we're going to build towards that, where that barrier is not so person-led, but instead it's a system-led that just works. I think that actually will alleviate a lot of the stressors that every single first responder, every outreach worker, every community member, every family member kind of experiences on a regular basis.
Okay, let's talk about some more money.
More money.
If I could just add on to that. So I think there's two things that come to mind for me that aren't money or funding related. First is something that I'm actually working on this next session, which is making it easier to become a social worker. We need more social workers. They are vastly underpaid, like Chris said. And the process for becoming a social worker actually doesn't make any sense. And it's really, really hard to become a social worker if you don't have a lot of money to put yourself through school and then the unpaid portion of your supervision requirements. So we're doing work at the state right now to try to make that easier and increase the number of people who can become social workers. And then the second thing is, one eye-opening moment for me when we were starting Road to Recovery is we took a visit to, I can't remember which nonprofit it was. I think it was maybe Denver, I'll get it wrong, but in any event, large nonprofit in the city that services unhoused folks. And we were talking to them about their intake process, and they said the first thing they do is they ask the person who comes in, do you have any other social workers who you're working with? And a lot of times that person's not in the right mental state to say, but they find frequently people have like 4 or 5 different social workers, and nobody knows who each other is, because it's not a system, right? Like what Chris is saying about different data systems. And the frustrating thing is we spend the money, we give out grants, but we don't coordinate anything. And so this, I strongly believe, and this is, where I think we were hoping roads would go directionally, like we need to build the infrastructure for a system where everybody can talk to each other, everybody's on the same sheet of music, because the way we do it now is just incredibly inefficient. And part of the thinking with Roads to Recovery was we actually brought a lot of that in-house. Like we have city employees doing this work. And that's not always popular. There's a lot of great nonprofits who want those resources to go to them. And I think, they do great work and should have those resources too. But I do think part of the solution is let's have better systems. Let's play the role of coordinator. Let's bring more folks in-house so we can deliver better services.
Sorry, Gil, I know we keep going over your times, but the other, like, what I was just reminded of by what you were talking about, is that some of the city employees that we brought in-house are, I believe, doing the screening at the All in Mile High sites for health issues, which again, then is mostly paid for out of Medicaid. But we have a couple of city employed nurses, I think, that are trying to just meet with everybody who's in those hotel shelters. And the average number of visits that people have had this year to different kinds of healthcare, having now been like brought into it, is 9. And a lot of it is like primary care, but it's also mental health. I mean, people need a lot of healthcare when they've been out on the streets for a while. And so it's an example of where like having people in a location where we know where they are and then sending a healthcare intake person who's employed by the city to them has resulted in people actually accessing healthcare. Like they just are. And those are mostly people that were in encampments, you know, until late 2023. So I saw that number earlier today and it was a great number.
Okay, back to Chris. Tell us what you know about Medicare funding cuts. What's the status? What's your expectations? What are you going to do about it?
Medicaid.
Medicaid. I'm sorry. Medicaid.
I mean, that's probably, yeah, I was gonna say, that's these two, it would be pretty catastrophic. I think for roads specifically, it impacts us more from the provider network that is reliant on Medicaid. So they're scrambling already for how are we gonna readjust to like our new norm, and we have to kind of like follow how they're gonna be doing it. And so it does pose significant problems.
Yeah, for the 30% of Denver is on Medicaid, I believe is that right, Matt? I think it's 30%. But in Denver, I think it's 3rd. You know the state, I know the city. So yeah, the Medicaid cuts that are kind of, one of the big,
I'll just talk really loud.
Yeah, we got.
Okay.
I know. Stop trying
one of the, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest challenges, there's a lot happening with Medicaid, but 2 things that I'm really worried about. One is that we're going to start imposing work requirements on anyone that doesn't have a very documented, specific kind of disability. And a lot of people don't have if you haven't been accessing healthcare, you probably don't have a diagnosis. So if you're right now living in a city hotel shelter and you're accessing services, healthcare through the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and you've been screened by our city nurses, and you are, I forget what the word, the big beautiful bill uses these ridiculous words, but if you're assessed to be someone who like should be working, you're going to lose your Medicaid. And so we have to start thinking about either finding ways to help people meet Medicaid work requirements if they're imposed. So, I mean, I can imagine we do have a whole program within economic development that's helping get people employed, but that is a slog. When someone's been coming out of unsheltered homelessness, that takes some lifting. They've had amazing results, but they're pretty small. So you either have to get someone doing enough work hours to meet the requirement or get their disability documented. And so we need to be getting ahead of that. And the problem is that that's kind of no one's specific problem right now. And so I'm just saying it to you guys. And one thing we should be doing is asking all of our hospitals to spend their community benefits money on keeping people enrolled in Medicaid. So just, you know, anyone from a hospital in the room, let them know. We need to be getting ahead of that. And another thing I was going to say is that we need better systems for people. Like right now, a lot of them get their mail if they're not sheltered at the day center at St. Francis. And when I used to volunteer there, one of the big volunteer roles is sorting mail, and you would put anything government in like a special folder and they would keep it for a lot longer, but there's like 8,000 people that get mail there or something. And so after a while, they have to throw that folder away. And so they have a folder of, you got your Social Security, you know, you maybe even got housing mail from all the federal and state agencies that people need. You got your SNAP benefits, and people's lives are so chaotic, they're not coming back in and getting that mail, and eventually it gets tossed. So that, and someone, you know, we paid to send that mail, we paid to make that determination, right? So a lot of those things, I think the city is gonna have to be way more proactive about, because keep in mind, healthcare, generally speaking, is like a state and federal thing. And so that's part of what I like to emphasize is that even this idea of roads to recovery, and that we're gonna interface with all the healthcare providers and really get to know them and send people their way and work with them and employ nurses and social workers, it's really new and different. And if Medicaid is gonna start failing us and becoming harder to get, we're just gonna have to be better and better about, like, you know, both navigating people into those systems ourselves or finding other ways to fund it, I guess, but that is a hell of a hole. So, but it's becoming more of a city problem because the federal government's falling apart, so.
Is this a new mic?
It should.
This is a,
You can use that.
this is a new mic? Okay. We'll see how long it lasts. So I just wanted to add a little bit more details so folks know. You hear a lot about healthcare and Medicaid cuts, but there's basically three things that are about to happen. One is there are work requirements that are going to be imposed for Medicaid. And right now the estimates are in Colorado, about 125,000 people are probably going to drop off the Medicaid rolls because of that. Then you've got the ACA subsidies, which you've heard so much about because it was, all in the air for the government shutdown. That's going to affect about 225,000 people in Colorado. So for those folks, the effect of that is like a doubling or maybe even a tripling of their healthcare costs. So nobody really knows how many folks are going to be able to pay that bill or how many folks are going to, not be able to find insurance as a result. And then the last thing is, because we have this $1 billion budget hole because of Tabor, the governor's plan to fund that includes a decrease on reimbursements for Medicaid. So just to keep up for inflation next year, we would have to increase those reimbursements by about 11%. Instead, he's proposing to come down to 5.5%. And so we'll see what the impact of that is, but if there's any doctors or medical professionals here, they don't make money off of Medicaid, right? And so for folks who service populations with Medicaid, you got to make up for that money somewhere else. So I think the impact of that is going to be that everybody's premiums are going to go up. If you're impacted by the subsidies, your premiums will go way up. And across the board, we'll see somewhere between 400,000 to 500,000 folks who fall off the Medicaid rolls.
Okay, let's move on. And there's I want to spend a little bit of time talking about opioid settlement funds. And nationwide, the opioid settlement totals about $58 billion, with Colorado receiving about $870 million, and Denver designated to receive about $99 million in combined settlement and Centers for Disease Control funds treatment. And this is going to happen over the next 18 years, this money. So in short, the opioid settlement provides Denver with a rare opportunity, but the real test will be how wisely and sustainably those funds are invested to strengthen treatment, prevention, and housing for the long term. Sterling, we're going to go to you and tell us a bit more about this and share what opioid settlement means for our community, and in particular, is there a way that this will be used to expand facilities?
Sure. So over the course of the last 20 years, there have been a number of settlements with a lot of major pharmaceutical developers that have brought some money into the state and to the city, specifically to deal with opioid abatement. Those funds are managed by the regional opioid abatement councils. We actually have one here in Denver as well. It's called DOAC. And they're the ones who actually outline the specs on how that money is spent over the course of the next 18 years as we receive them. I believe you are currently sitting on the DOAC board. And so they have a number of requirements on programs that those can be spent on. You can actually find those on their website. Over time, we have received, I think, a total of around $7 million since 2018, something along those lines. A lot of that money has been spent on things around harm reduction and opioid mitigation. So those are things like naloxone, making sure that our public health and safety professionals have that on hand. It's things like the Harm Reduction Center, which has received funds in the past from DOAC. Those are really a lot of what that program focuses on, really addressing the opioid crisis after folks have fallen into that cycle. What's that? Oh, if you want to go ahead. Sure. I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah. So I sit on the DOAC. We are one of the regional opioid abatement councils, and it's nice that we're a city and county, so it's just Denver is our council. We always are recruiting non-voting members, and you also can attend the meetings and watch them if you're interested, but it's pretty dry. We've strategic planned like crazy and tried to figure out this balance. I've talked to the senator a lot about this between do we try to just get funding out the door to like everyone on all parts of the spectrum of prevention to treatment to, or do we try to invest in like sort of a big facility or something like that? And there's flexibility in all of that. We continue to have those conversations. The people who serve on it are very expert and very wonderful, but we just decided to support an application for Denver Cares, which is the Denver Health kind of detox facility, to receive funding to rebuild and be able to provide a higher level of treatment than it has in the past, which has been like one of the biggest gaps in our kind of care continuum. So we had talked about this forever. I think Senator Ball manifested it because he just kept saying, we have to fund Denver Cares. Maybe we could do that with the opioid money. And then I got to vote on it last week. So the state, that's for a special round of funding that the state council will still have to approve. But it was great to see that actually moving forward because we really need, CARES is like a very low barrier. Like you can, sort of get in there and get stabilized immediately. And it's sort of the lowest level of care that someone might need for substance abuse. And it's been, it hasn't changed a lot in many decades, I think is probably fair to say. So the DOAC, we feel very strongly how precious those dollars are. And we've been a little slow to spend them. And I think in 26 and 27, you'll see sort of an acceleration of the money going out the door because we've been planning very diligently.
Okay, thank you guys very much. We are going to skip some questions because I want to make sure we give people an opportunity to ask questions of you. But one thing, Sterling and Chris, if you could send me, I know that the mayor's office is asking in Roads to Recovery for us to report when we do see unhoused, when they need assistance. So if you could send that to me so we can get to some questions, and then I will email it to everyone who registered for the meeting. But just tell us how that helps, why should we do it, and the best way to report that. That would be great. Okay, so we're just going to hop in, and we started a few minutes late. So if you guys don't mind staying just a little bit longer, we can get some questions in. And I will let you know that we do have one last Mentimeter question asking you to kind of rate this town hall. And if we don't get to your question, you can input it there. And then Gil and I will make sure we get the answer to you. So if you just keep your questions in your mind, we'll get to as many as we can. But if we run out of time, we will definitely get answers to your questions. So, I'm going to just point to people. State your name and who do you want to answer your questions? So I'll start with you back there.
Yeah, hi. My name's Dave. It's just a general comment. I'm in the healthcare field. I'm glad I'm not in any of your positions because it's obvious that I don't know how many decades of political decisions or missteps or whatever have been made in this state. You're dealing with the consequences of it now and having to deal with it. The healthcare costs, behavioral health, general health, primary care, are way beyond what people think they are. If Denver Health doesn't go bankrupt, it's probably going to get pretty close to going bankrupt. But, there's been a lot of decisions made for decades that are causing this situation now. And it's not just Colorado, but in other states also, it's pretty frustrating to hear of the lack of systems that haven't been developed over who knows how many years as far as coordination of providers, coordination of mental health, beefing up the mental health system. I guess you could say it's blamed on Tabor, but that's not the only reason that we're in the position that we're in. And that's about it.
And I just want to take a second, please, to let you know also we have Chris Nicholson here, who's on the RTD board. And I know we've had some issues lately that have come to light with drug and sheltering on buses. So if you have a question about that, Chris is here to answer that. Go ahead right here.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to, yes, I'm JJ Jordan. I'm a resident down here. And I know Sterling really well. And thank you all for being here. I will, well, I don't know. Do I need the microphone?
Can you hear her?
I'm going to talk out loud.
Stand up, please.
Yes, and I am standing up. I know it's tiptoes. Okay, so typically in a town hall, we get to talk and tell you what we think, and you guys get to listen to us. So I thought this was fascinating. I'm glad I came, but I'd like to suggest that the next one, it goes the other way. I think there's assumption acceptance going on. One of you, you're all brilliant, by the way, but one of you said, Tabor is strangling our city. Yeah, for sure. So why are we not doing a major campaign to educate the public as to why we need to get rid of it? Because we are never going to be a world-class city until we get rid of this. So we need to really all work on it as a community. And then the other one is, well, you sure can't get treatment in jail. Jail isn't the place for treatment. Well, why not? That's an assumption. If you're in jail because your behavior is such that it warrants it, that's where you are. So let's bring the treatment or whatever it is to where you are instead of waiting for you to get out. So these are just assumptions that I think we need to just turn the world upside down because it isn't working as it is now. Thank you.
Sure. We are in that moment, and I'm going to phrase the second part as a question. When I said jail isn't the place for treatment, they actually do. I mean, again, there's a Denver Health satellite in the jail, and they move mountains. They do a pretty amazing job, but because of all the regulatory layers that are on them as a jail, they have to just like jump through these hoops. Everything is more expensive. Everything is harder. So I am a huge fan of what the sheriff has done in the jail, and I've run many budget amendments to add funding to it. It's just a really hard place to do treatment compared to, you know, a hospital or somewhere that's made for it. So I just wanted to make sure that you hear me, that I actually think I'm so proud that we do treatment in our jail, put it that way. Thank you.
And if I could speak to the first part of that. So there is an effort underway, and there is going to be a measure on the 2026 ballot that will make an enormous impact. And you will hear a lot more about it, but I encourage everybody here to get the word out. It's actually a tax cut. So if you make less than $500,000, your taxes will be cut. It's a graduated income tax. Right now we have a flat tax. So this shifts us to kind of like the federal level. If you make more, your tax rate's higher. And it would generate somewhere between $2 and $3 billion for the state budget just next year, the year after it hopefully passes. So yes, that's the big campaign that I'm very passionate about, that I think is really critical for us to get out of this problem that we're in. But there absolutely is something being done.
Hi, I'm Tricia Stevens. I'm in Councilman Hines' office. So, and Sterling, you and I chatted tonight. So, one of the things, forgive me, I'm so sorry.
Maybe use the mic.
One of the things, okay. One of the things I'm not hearing, I don't think it's on. One of the things I'm not hearing is anything about wraparound services. I worked in constituent services in DeGette's office for 8 years, and that was a major part of the work that I did. Was it isn't all just being unhoused, it isn't all just medical, but it's all connected. There's so much interconnectivity that it just doesn't get addressed. And one of the things to add to your list of the 3 things that you said that were causing big problems for us that are upcoming, the loss of, an incoming loss of 30 to 35,000 veterans service providers is going to hit us like a big fat storm, especially here in a regional VA center.
Does anybody want to address what she said?
Yeah. So specifically with Roads to Recovery, like we do have city-based wraparound services. Like those individuals will see those clients 3 times a week at minimum in the community where that person lives, so that they can have that understanding of the comings and goings and what supports they need. There's always been this belief of like, oh, if I connect this individual to this provider, cool, hands off, high five, everything's good. We took the stance is some individuals in the community need a village. They need all hands on deck to support that individual. And so we may connect now with Roads to Recovery. We may connect someone with the Mental Health Center of Denver and a peer from Servicio de la Raza attached with a court liaison with Bridges because competency's been raised. And we all work together, and the Roads to Recovery case manager's goal is to make sure everyone is on the same page, that if someone can't find someone, it's like, okay, we saw them the other day. We were on something this week where it was like, can't find this client, where are they at? Found her, able to actually figure out how do we do the next step. So it is that wraparound. And then we also have our individuals that it's like, They just needed the step up and the connection at that point. That's all they needed. That's all they're asking for. And we just open the door to say, if something changes and you need additional support, tell us what it is. We will find a way to make that happen. And so that's part of the goal, is kind of breaking down those silos of like one entity saying they can cover everything and saying, actually, let's actually attack this as a whole Denver community and make sure that we're not duplicating services, but we're complementing those services.
Brilliant, that's what I wanted to hear, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Chris next, but I see the other 3 hands, so I will get to you next. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Hi, Chris Nicholson, RTD Board of Directors. I know most of you. RTD is the largest transportation provider in the state for people experiencing homelessness and people on the margins. And I'm wondering, when it comes to addressing this issue, and I guess I'm addressing this to Chris, do you think RTD is an important stakeholder in addressing this issue, A? And B, what is the city doing right now to work with RTD to ensure effective access to transportation for the people being served by Roads to Recovery?
I can speak from my side. So we've, Steve Martingano and I worked together pre-pandemic when he approached me and was just like, you guys have a co-responder program. How do we get one of those with RTD? And so he really championed how to get co-responders riding with their security officers on RTD. I believe they have 3 currently. And then they brought on outreach teams that specifically were meant to help our unhoused that are using the RTD buses and the light rail actually navigate to the correct services and stuff. So I think RTD has really done a great partnership with community organizations to help build that up. On top of that is also working with RTD on, when you have someone and you're identifying this person needs help and they're telling any officer that they have contact with, I need support, they reach out to us, we connect them with that support, and then they may have like a flag on them that they're not supposed to be actually on that bus. And so we've actually worked with the security team to say, well, if that person is willing to get connected to the service and we connect them and transportation to that service is used by the bus, can we somehow maybe work with you guys to actually manage access to the transportation, assuming that they're obeying everything that they're supposed to, but that they have these wraparound services around them. So I think it's ongoing and improving. Love Martingano, I cannot speak highly about him, but I do think there is the building and the continued safety net to help support that community as well. And then the riders that just ride them in general. I think a lot of our city-based employees, because parking's a nightmare downtown, usually take the bus in order to get downtown. So I think it is an ever-growing thing we want to tap into.
You are next. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey everyone, my name is Pete Isakovich. I'm a business owner and a homeowner. And I also have 13 years sober, so I've been there. I wish there was a distinction that would be made between those that are homeless because of mental health issues and those who are criminals, right? The guy who pulled a gun on me in August trying to steal my dog, I don't want him going to Road to Recovery. I want him in jail. The guy that pulled the gun on a homeowner pulling into my building on Monday at 3 in the afternoon, he doesn't need treatment. No. He needs to go to jail. But instead, the DA let him out in 2 hours. The mail ring the people who've been stealing mail in town, I tackled one of those people in my building. I got the whole thing on video. We caught him. DA cut a deal with them, plead him down to a 6-month jail term. This is someone who's been terrorizing the city stealing mail for 9 months, which started with the armed robbery of a federal employee of a postal carrier. So the guy that got arrested 11 times this year, sorry, dude, you don't get the treatment, you don't get the extra services, you don't get the funds for mental health, you go to jail. And I think if we did that and we could take 10, 20, 30% of these criminals, not sick people, criminals off the street, somebody breaking into stores, stealing stuff, get them off the street. Maybe then we'd have resources to help those that are really sick, like your relative and your homeless cousin. And maybe the people that would be in jail would come to their senses. And I'll leave it with this. My experience with the courts is family court. Jesus Christ, if I had pulled the gun on my ex-wife, right? The consequences. This scared me. This kept me from doing criminal things. I don't think you have those consequences on the criminal side. I think we need to be tough. Tough love, tough.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did anybody want to respond to that question or comment?
I can take a shot at it. You know, what I can say about that is that we, in the DA's office, are constantly working to fit the treatment of a crime to the impact it has on people and to the danger it poses to the community. And we spend the vast majority of our time and resources and effort prosecuting violent offenses and trying to hold violent offenders and the people who are truly not mentally ill or drug addicted and not being driven by those factors. We spend the vast majority of our time trying to hold those folks who are predators in our community accountable. And, you know, we're doing our best to do that on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes incarceration is what has to happen if an individual poses a danger to the community. We're always going to be working to hold those people accountable as best we can. You know, I was almost late tonight because I'm in the process of doing a murder trial, and I'm happy to do that work, and it's such a big part of the work we do in the DA's office. And, you know, you're certainly going to not stop doing that.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to Cheryl and 2 questions, and then we're going to shut it down because I know everybody needs to get home. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I am Cheryl Clark, a resident of downtown. And first of all, as was said previously, I can't imagine doing any of your jobs. And there's part of me that feels like, oh my God, it's just so hopeless. But we all love this city and we want it to be better. And I hear that from each of you up there, that you want it to be better. I'm just wondering if there aren't some out-of-the-box big thoughts that could be attacked. We have 4 or 5 professional ball teams in the city, and those people make outrageously ridiculous sums of money. We also have a big tech community, and those people make a lot of money. Like, there is money in this city. Why can't we have something that, I mean, like a nonprofit does? You throw a ball, you throw an event, you do something to bring people together and say, we need your help. What can you help us with? Creating some mental health institutions that you can put your name on the building. Do something that is big thinking, out of the box thinking. The guy who's breaking windows, maybe he just needs to break shirt. You know, like, we have some demolition projects that could probably really use his help. So I just want to try to get people, like, you know, this gal up here was saying, let's try to think differently, because what we're doing now, I mean, maybe we're inching along, but it's not, we're not gaining the leaps and bounds that we need to create the city that we all want to live in.
Any comment to that?
I'm always open to crazy ideas.
Okay, one last question.
Well, I'm a 30-year resident of Lower Downtown. My name's Tim Jordan. Oh, thanks. And I was hoping that I would hear, and Sterling
Can you hold the mic up?
I always say, what can we do about the one-offs down here? And that's, I guess, what they're talking about. But like the guy that lays in the middle of my sidewalk at 3 a.m. screaming help, and I don't know who to call. If I call him when they never come, or if they come, it's 5 hours later and that person's gone. I would love to have somebody be able to give us a list of here's the people you call. But I don't think most of us know who it is. And we need like reasonably good response time, because those people do wander off in a few hours. And this person needs help, clearly. I want them off my sidewalk, but I really want them to get help too.
Yeah, thank you for that so much. And I honestly, Sterling and Chris, they'll send me what to report, what happens in your report, and how to do it. So if you guys could do that, go ahead.
We
That'd be
can
great.
certainly send over some information on who to refer to. The big structural challenge we face right now is that at an hour like 3 a.m., if somebody is in crisis, a DPD officer will respond, but they frankly don't have anywhere that they can really refer them to. So what you will see in 2026, as I mentioned, we are increasing the patrol hours that will have our downtown patrol active. And that will include that kind of 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. window where we just don't really see people right now. And that largely, we hope, will be staffed by community ambassadors and by caseworkers who can at the very least push that ball a little further than DPD can right now. So those changes will be coming in 26, and we will have more folks that can be referred to when that happens. So we'll make sure y'all have that information. But what I will say right now is, please, if any of you have any incidents of folks experiencing homelessness or drug addiction, mental health issues, please continue to report to 311. I do know that it can be a black hole a lot of times, but I know that our encampment response director, we all have a map that we keep open on our computer at all hours of the day. And I know Ryan Ertman does as well. And anytime any of those 311 reports get lodged, that is where that goes, and we use that map to determine where our outreach priorities are. So please, I understand that it may not seem like it's important, it may not seem like anything gets done, but by all means, please continue to report, because that's how we determine who and where needs the need, has the most need.
Thank you very much. Oh, do you want to say something?
I wanted to go back to the big ideas question kind of. And I'll say, like, serving on this council with this mayor, it's actually a pretty like ambitious group of people. And it's kind of small for the size of the city that Denver is. There's 13 council members, 1 mayor, the clerk of the auditor. That's what you guys have for elected representatives. We're not like the legislature. It's like a little baker's dozen of us. But we have been, I think there's a lot of shared desire for Denver, like, not to be making excuses and to do better. Like, we don't, this problem that we now have, children who can't get a shelter, is unacceptable. It's a moral injury. Like, we have to fix it. And so I've really enjoyed working with all of that group of people, because the city has changed a lot in 2 years. It's not always that visible, but the amount of kind of rethinking and restructuring that's happened is large. We're not a stagnant city, and we haven't talked a lot tonight about our housing department, which is kind of ironic. Well, we've talked about things they do, but they're not directly here. One of the things that they're starting to do now that we have not really done before is thinking in a different way about homelessness prevention. So if you look at where people are immediately before they become unhoused for the first time, there's basically, I can't remember, I'm gonna count them all off and then I'll remember if it's 4 or 5 as I count them, feeders into that. One of them is people that are released from hospitalization and their lives fell apart while they were there, or their health got really bad because their lives had already fallen apart. One of them, of course, is evictions. One of them is leaving incarceration, and one of them is foster care. And if there's a 5th one, I forgot it, so I'll say there's 4. And those are not things that, the city, we have thought a lot in very recent years about eviction prevention, but like when I was at Colorado Legal Services, we had like 2 lawyers doing eviction, and then another nonprofit came up, and now it has like 100 people statewide, and CLS. I mean, the reason that a lot of these things have snuck up on us is because our city got a lot more expensive. Like and that is the underlying feeder of, if you think about those pillars, not all of those pillars, right? But certainly the eviction one, and then relatedly hospitalization and incarceration. It's just sort of like the rent is too damn high problem. Like, that really is a huge piece of the problem as well. So I'm glad that our housing department is thinking about those feeders and how to look at each one of those individually and differently. The lack of this, we were gonna get this Medicaid solution, and then the Trump administration came in and took it away. That would have really helped us catch people as they were leaving the jail, if part of what was going on with them was medical, and even would allow Medicaid to then sometimes pay for housing if people were so sick that they couldn't pay for their housing another way. That's all gone for now. But we were thinking about those things in Denver. Colorado had applied for those Medicaid waivers. The state legislature and the HCPF, the Medicaid department of the state, had put all this work into that. Denver had supported that. So I have hope that we can do things differently. But where I'm going with this whole feeders thing is that part of that is going to be, we do need more funding for actual housing. We absolutely need that. And our department does a pretty excellent job like catalyzing units to be built with the money that they have. It's pretty amazing how many units around Denver are income restricted or, partially owned by the city in some way. That has grown again, like a huge amount, but it's just too small. So other cities are starting to experiment with different funding models for housing that are more self-sustaining and that get us out of this reliance on state and federal money. I'm really interested in that. So we got to kind of shift the focus over to, I think, the housing and the prevention piece. And I will end with a piece of good news, which is that also in my committee meeting earlier, really hard to know for sure. It's amazing how hard it is to know this for sure, but it seems like we're having less people falling into first-time homelessness now than we have in a while. So let's hope that's true and keep on the right track with that.
Thank you. That's really great news. We love hearing that. Well, I really wanted to thank our panelists for being here this evening, all of you for coming. The health of downtown Denver depends on both compassion and accountability, supporting those in crisis while ensuring safety and vitality for all. Tonight's discussion is just one step in shaping those solutions together. And I think the point of the town hall too was, one, to get a chance to meet our leaders that you might not have met before, but to learn about roads to recovery. I recently learned about that from Sterling. So I didn't know who all was aware of Roads to Recovery and the work that they're doing. But I think you now know we are a compassionate group of people, but we also live down here and we live with this all the time, and it's hard. So we just wanted you to hear our perspective too. So we have one little millimeter question, and the most important part of it is if you didn't get your question answered, you didn't get a chance, or you have one in your head, you can submit it and we will get with these fine members and we'll get that answer to you. So Jen, do you want to do that real quick? And thank you guys so much, everyone. Thank you.
Our event tonight from a 1 to a 10, please. And then I'll move forward just so that you can see that last question as well. If you have any other comments or questions, you can type them in with your email address. We'll get those out to everyone. And then just a reminder that if you are not an UpDoNA member and would like to, we would love to have you as part of our community. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at more events like this.
And 10 is good.
10 is good. We like 10. So thank you so much.
I have to do my LinkedIn post. I never expected this. Always do a LinkedIn post. So I'm hey, there you have this strategy. Right? Yeah. Right. So I'll tag you. Yes, I'll tag you. Yeah. Guys are like, hey, I don't really want to be. Yeah. Parents interested in what you had to say about how that went. Dave Albee went, and
Yeah, that's what I mean. Good to see you.
Likewise. Drive carefully.
So, I talked to the guy who does all this education on it, but I looked into two of my colleagues. Looked into my yes.
We're all bundled, we're not looking for, that we know. I recognize her face at least.
Yeah.
Great to meet you. Thank you.
Don't stop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
I know a lot of us. Nice to meet you.
Our degree is not that's going to be like so that we have to buy this second thing we can advocate.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
And one's a.
Are you ever ready? One down south.
So that's part of the reason that I'm trying to emphasize the emotional aspect. There are I know, and it's everybody. Yeah, I have tiny kids who I found my child and not been able to figure
And a lot of the judges, you deal with murder cases.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
I like to too fast.
It's hard sometimes to see the seriousness and the impact
Right about it.
Trisha,
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah. You're in Chris Hines' office? How long have you been there?
Only a couple months.
Okay, I was gonna say, we must have missed each other in the city. I was in the mayor's office before.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah, shifts of the night. But
Indeed.
thanks for coming, this is a great
My hands out there, you can dump them in. Right to the right, I see the trash can.
We were on the phone with each other on our way to three months. We have much to talk about, but I'm grateful and I look forward to, and I told that, told me lots of things right by your office. Really nice to meet you.
You too, you too, yeah.
I was going to ask you still running. Right after the holidays. I really want to
Yeah, I think that's
the local banks not so much. They've done a really good job. So it's going to be a fight. I'm definitely not going to get a lot of those talking to
I was going to ask you, it's like 400 people know about it. It's like, I just by far, it's
How did you bring them in?
they seem like they're more than they are. I mean, it's a tough line to walk, Hey, Paul.
The volunteer work counts, you know.
Yes. It will, yeah, November 2026, a little over a year from now. Need to pass the time. So there's an outfit called the Bell Policy Center, you know Bell? Yep. So Bell's leading the charge, Christopher Wright, if you remember the legislature, you know Charter Bell. But they've got a bunch, there's like 60-some groups now signing off. There's some like there's some coalitional politics right now. The teachers union maybe breaking away and trying to run their own thing, so trying to get everybody together to be like, hey, we gotta put together our things. Question, I am sure once the campaign comes around, there will be like a 100%. Because the challenge is like sometimes when Tabor comes up, it sounded like the second most Senate. So a lot of times I ask folks like, raise your hand if you like Tabor. Nobody raises their hand. Turns out statewide, most people raise their hand, right? So it's a battle, and what I love about this is it's a tax cut.
You know what, I
The tax cut, like 97% of people want the tax cut. And, you know, all the arguments for the well-funded opposition against this are, you know, don't let them raise your taxes. Yeah, Michael Fields will have a field day, but it is going to take like a lot of boots on the ground to go to places where people don't understand Tabor, don't understand what a graduated income tax means, all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure there'll be enormous opportunities to.
Yeah, I am too, yeah. I'm back there with,
Gotcha, so you're on, you're just on.
And it's frustrating because like I
directly across from the
hate to do the thing where you're like,
Gotcha, okay.
maybe on my phone.
Well, I'll look for you.
My folks too.
All right.
Good to see you. Good luck.
We ran into each other in like remote southern Arizona right now.
oh no way.
My mom and my sisters.
We're in this like, I mean, there's like 12
It's from my hometown.
No way. In Wyoming?
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured this all out, but then also, yeah, it was really funny.
Small world.
And it was so tiny, yeah, that
She actually, I think I know her.
and so since my dad was elected official, my sisters are like so annoyed by just the fact that I know some of the rights. And I'm like, it's not my fault, plus he's a nice guy, and he's from Mexico.
That's awesome.
Thank you for
Good to see you. Also, thank you so much for Karen's work. That's so huge. Yeah. Should I write a letter?
Yeah.
Coax?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, I'll do that. Yep.
They do.
Take care. All right, just checking with honestly, my biggest problem with this guy
The lady back there that was
no willingness to take on people. And that's just me. Hey, it's politically expedient to be like, I want no taxes too, right? It's like, you gotta be adults here. Come on, like, stop lying.
Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. You too. Thanks for coming.
I need to meet, so you
This was before. Are you doing the bottom of the front?
Facility.
No,
I'm
I'm not sure I
So it's gonna be you with. From what I understand.
Is there a way to bring it back?
So we're gonna get a lot of these chairs out against the wall.
For sure.
contact
Yeah.
information. I will send it to you. And then try to keep it as updated as possible.
Chairs in the middle.
But yeah,
But Chris Douglas said,
Well, these people are seeing, we've seen that before, so familiar. So, yeah.
I think they can go in. Is this how they go?
Actually, we're going to put a bunch at the back of the room. This goes in kind of like a rectangle. Yes.
So nothing on this side?
Nope.
Scissors.
Good thought. That would make sense.
we were starting to start. I had forgiven me and never barely had.
Goes this way?
Yes, that's it.
So this was in a
a square and this was a
Get a
U.
job.
So we'll do it, we'll just go back to like the normal
Okay,
thing.
all right, okay, perfect, perfect.
And I was just like.
There's just one single chair left.
Oh, I
got it.
Right here.
I wouldn't dream of not.
We have just.
Thank you first. You have to stay here with us.
No, this is perfect. No, this works out super well, and I always like to hear the conversation.
You can just spend the night, and then you don't have to go home.
That's right. Thankfully, I'm not very far. You did it A plus, almost. Right here.
No, well done.
Right up here.
Just gonna push the side.
Oh, actually, yeah. Thank you.
Holy cow, what is it? How'd you all figure this out? A whole bunch of chairs will remain along the back wall. A bunch of the chairs will remain here in the back wall. There's more chairs than spaces.
Okay, I think there was just one space left.
Yeah, they usually line this wall. Sometimes they Indeed, we've done this over the years. That's a requirement of letting it so long. We're just looking like.
How's this, overhead chairs?
Oh, great.
Okay, Michelle, I think we have to get.
Sorry. Is it our roll of chairs here?
Bobby? There's four stages.
I'll let somebody, okay, I just want to make sure they're.
Yeah, that's where the keys are.
Yeah, okay.
Except for you do. Yeah, it's been a great spirit. It does.
The minute they were saving it.
No, these go back. These go back to us. For those viewers. Because we got a spire. These are five. I think she is. No, the spires has a grant right. Nobody does. She got about. Like she had. Do you probably go? I wrote it down. Because it was fun somewhere around here.
No, I don't think any of us know. Maybe the center. Do you know if that table that we used?
Okay, so are we okay if we take our wagon with the stuff. Go back to the smile.
It seems like a good idea.
Yeah, but I want to see it. Okay. So she's got help loading all that stuff?
Yes, yeah, I'll stick around.
So we're gonna.
Businesses and she was like, I don't know. I seem like everyone. She was
I gotta tell you, that is.
And then I'll edit and add. But it's hard to catch all the information while you're actually doing it. It's a skill. I feel like you maybe. If you don't mind, take like 5 spiral showers. And then I'll get the rest loaded in my mouth, because I'll never get to load back up into.
Oh. I can do that.
Can you?
I took them out.
So, and we have the tapes, but we're taking everything out. And the food. Oh, yeah. Let me grab it for you. Absolutely.
Last person you want to ask. He's like spiral out of control. He's the one guy who knows that he doesn't know, or he should know. He knows.
Oh, that I had some of this stuff. If you want to, that is probably.
Some people might. Get that dehumidifier.
I want to get one. Tim's question.
Is this the card question? Okay.
The person that shows us is just what they asked.